Good afternoon, and welcome to the fifth episode of Leadership Talks. And just for the new folks out there, this is a 20-minute Q&A. We do it every Thursday at 12:30 Eastern Time with an industry leader. And today's leader is Rory Russell, CEO of Acquisition and Funding Services. Now, this should be an interesting one because, it's not a manufacturer, it's not an association, but a perspective from the financial side of the world. So welcome, Rory.
Hi, thank you for having me join your webinar here, Tim.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as I said, this program is called Leadership Talks. My question for you, I always start off by, asking you your leadership style. But since you're, kind of a small organization, what is your leadership style and how do you position your organization within the industry?
Well, we try to stay informed on what's going on in the industry and trends and what's going on in our industry is very important. I'm a broker and work in the alarm industry, only in the alarm industry. I don't work with other types of business, anything to do with security, integration, access control, which is an integration. I work with those sellers throughout the country that are looking to sell their business either now or in the future. I've been doing this for over 21 years now. What's unique about me that I used to own a large regional security company in the Northeast here and had 5 offices and did over $5 million a year. So I have some experience from being there, actually working with all the things that a typical alarm company has to deal with, or security company has to deal with every day: payroll, hiring, keeping up with technology, getting customers, installing the customers, keeping them happy, and keeping that recurring revenue coming in on a regular basis. So I don't wear my collar backwards. I understand what these dealers go through, so I have some understanding of the business from being there.
So Rory, if I can just jump in, you talk about being in the trenches as a dealer. I guess question one is, how long ago was that? And what do you see as the differences between a dealer when you were doing it and a dealer today, and what are their biggest challenges?
Well, a dealer back then, there was less choices of what the customers could do. Now we're looking at it. There's so many more options for these dealers today. You got the DIY programs, which are becoming very prevalent. As we read today, ADT jumped into it as of this morning. I read in your publication this morning, your email I got saying ADT's jumping into the DIY. So DIY is becoming a bigger. That wasn't when I was in the business. That wasn't a big thing. Technology was very limited. There wasn't what the options we have today. Smart home wasn't really around back then. I think we had two-way voice was a unique item we had back then. So the technology is changing quickly, and keeping up with it is a challenge. You've got much more competition. You've got the door knocker guys out there. You've got more competition. You got internet now that you've got people buying security systems on the internet. And then have them drop ship to to your home with monitoring or without monitoring. So it's important. Keeping up with it is a challenge today. It's almost like not a full-time job, but it's a good percentage of your week or month could be just keeping up what's going on as far as changes. And back then it was much slower, the pace of change.
So as a broker, can I assume that you're keeping up with the trends and with the technology of today, so you can actually have that face-to-face good conversation with the dealer? How do you do that?
Yes.
How do you keep up with technology?
Well,
of course you read SSN, but
yeah, that's what I was just going to say there, Tim.
Exactly.
And
we
keep up with that. Yeah. No, seriously, it's keeping it. The publications, trade shows are important. If you can't get to them, I think the internet is very helpful. We've got all our magazines coming in through the internet now, as well as coming in print. But the trade publications are probably the key to keeping up with it. I find it to be one of the easiest ways to stay in touch with what's going on. And then going to a trade show once a year wouldn't be a bad idea to one of the large ones and seeing what's newest and greatest out there. And then working with your local association. I think that, that's very important, that go to the local association meetings and put your time in, and learn from your other people in the industry.
So, how does it work? I mean, you're out there looking for buyers, or maybe looking for sellers. Tell me exactly what you do in the course of a day, as a broker, and how, are you a buyer's broker or a seller's broker, or both? How does that really work?
I typically work for the seller. Okay. Typically work for the seller. There is situations where I do work for the buyer. If the buyer calls me and says, I'm looking for this specific area, like I just got off the phone with a buyer just about an hour ago, says, I need to buy a company in the Midwest. And I will when I have the ability, I will network through my people to find out who might be available out in the Midwest. And I would reach out to that potential person and see if they're interested in selling. But typically I work for, 80% of the time I'm working for the seller exclusively. And I work only, that's the way it works. And it's a long process from start to finish. It's not something that can be done. From start to finish with the larger platforms, it could take as long as 6 months to do a deal, or a year. I've had it go as far as a year from start to finish. So it's a long process. So it's something you're thinking about doing something for next year. It's something you should consider at least picking up the phone and calling me, and talking with me. We can discuss. Yeah.
What's the size of your typical client? Who is their typical client?
There isn't. It's all over the map. Anywhere from $5,000 recurring monthly revenue, out to, I just did one that was $300,000 of 350,000 of RMR. So I mean, it can go from all different. The average is about 40,000, 35 to 40,000 is a typical, minimum. About a $1.5 million, $6 million, $1.6 million transaction typically is where we are as far as size.
You talk about RMR. How do they value their companies? I mean, how do you help them, look at the valuation and
well,
what do you look at?
If it's there's a couple different ways. The good, there's the RMR method of multiple RMR. If it's just a traditional ARM company, we do a multiple RMR. If it's an integration company, we'll do it a multiple of EBITDA. And I think we talked about EBITDA. What is EBITDA? And that's a earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation. We'll use that number plus whatever the owner is taking out as far as we'll add back the owner's pay, whatever the owner's taking out as far as monies. We'll add that back to the EBITDA. Because typically when the buyer buys the company, they'll do a transition, but the buyer will eventually be gone. So they can add that money back to the EBITDA. But EBITDA is that can anywhere from 4 times to 10 times, depending on who's buying it, what the cash flow is, and how much recurring revenue. It's important to have recurring revenue with that. If you don't have it, it will push the multiples of EBITDA down. But anywhere from 4 to 10 times EBITDA is where we'll see with an integrator, someone that does like a one-stop shop type person that does everything, CCTV, access control, fire. Go ahead.
So no, I was going to say, there's a lot of words out there that maybe people don't understand. You talked about EBITDA, that's fine. Add backs. Other words that I've noticed in some of the things that I've read from you is dry powder, attrition, gross and net. Talk about these words and how it really impacts the deal.
Well, attrition is very important. I think we have gross attrition, net attrition. Gross attrition is something that most people talk about, but what is that? That's the most important when you want to see if you're going forward or backwards. Net is actually what you add accounts that if you have attrition and you're putting new accounts on, that'll be a net attrition number. But gross is what most buyers are interested in, the gross number. Very important to know if they're Typical industry is from 10 to 15% attrition. If you can keep that below 10%, you're doing a great job, and it can be done. Just you got to pay attention to it. As far as attrition, what was the other one? As far as
my favorite one's dry powder.
Yeah, the dry powder. That's when you're looking for a buyer. When I look for a buyer, or I have qualified buyers, I make sure they have dry powder. Dry powder meaning they actually have the money to buy you.
Okay.
It's frustrating to find a buyer and he hasn't talked to any, the industry capital sources out there. We got Capital One, we got Capital Source, we've got private banks. There's several out there that do a good job for our industry. I would suggest that anybody looking to do an acquisition to work with those companies out there before they go out deciding to go out and buy something. It's called having the capital. So when you do find something, we don't, as me as a broker, I don't have to wait for you to get your money.
Right.
But dry powder is basically you're ready to go. You just got to find the opportunity and do your due diligence and get a deal done. But yeah, we suggest that highly, that if you're looking to buy that, to have that already taken care of.
Okay. So you're talking about selling the company, right? In
Yes.
your signature line on your email, I read, build your legacy while selling your accounts. Look at our legacy enhancement plan. What is the legacy enhancement plan? What does that mean? And really,
it's a business as usual program. What's really good about that, you continue to build off your reputation and expertise. You continue to operate and bill under the current company name. Basically, you sell the account base, but stay in business. The buyer continue to maintain your relationship with the customers. You continue to provide service as you've done in the past. You continue to work on account base for referrals, add-ons, and upgrades. You get paid top dollar. The company who buys the account base will bill them in your name and also collect them in your name. You bill and collect in your name, and answer the central station. Central station would be answering the phone also in your name. So basically what we're doing is it's seamless. You can cash out, keep your name, keep your reputation, keep your golden goose, so to speak, and you can cash in that money, and if you want to build it and get top dollar, actually as much or more than if you sold the whole thing outright, and yet you keep the machine that continues to generate more. You enhance your legacy. You can keep that business going and keep on keeping on. So it's business as usual. But
selling accounts. I mean, what percentage of accounts are we selling?
Yeah, this is not an ongoing program. This is a program you sell. It's a bulk sale. You can, once you do the bulk sale, minimum is about $7,500 of RMR. We'll take a look at 5,000 of RMR, but typically it's 5,000 to 7,000 of RMR. As much as 300, 400, or 500,000 of RMR. We can do that type of transaction, and yet you keep the machine. You keep what makes the money, which is the company name, and the goodwill, without losing all that. Because most buyers are putting a valuation on the business based on the account base. As far as a traditional alarm company, that's a commercial residential company. The value basically on the account base. This particular program, business as usual. You keep the golden goose. You keep the company that creates this account base. You don't have to sell all of it. You can sell partial. You can sell, if you want to sell half of it or 3/4 of it, you can do that too. So it's a unique way of kind of slowly exit the business, take some cash out. So it's a win-win situation. And then what's really good about that, you get 100% of your holdback, providing you stay in business. You're going to want to be doing the service. So the service is taken care of by the person that does it the best, and that's usually the dealer.
Interesting. So the question of the hour, and I see this in some of your stuff too, is to sell or not to sell. That is the question.
Yes.
Talk about that. How do you know when, and when's the right time?
There's all kinds of variables there, but there's it's whether you got a succession plan or not. If you're going to keep up with technology or not. I mean, you've got to keep up with it. If you don't want to, I think if you're not using a sticky, where I use sticky, you're not keeping your customers sticky by not giving them the newest and greatest type of system out there. Obviously, most people have smartphones today. Your clients should be able to work their systems through the cell phone. You've got to be able to keep up with technology. You've got to keep your attrition to the very low as you can. You've got to you got to keep growing. I got a famous expression: you're green, you're growing; you're ripe, you're rotten. And if you've not done anything to enhance what you provide to your clients, then you ought to maybe think about getting out. So it's a good time to, if you're getting older, you're not sure what you're going to do. It's a good time to look into it. I have an ebook, by the way. You go to Rory Russell AFS Smart Funding or afssmartfunding.com. I have an ebook which goes through those items.
Okay.
If you're considering selling or not to sell, there's a whole blog there I've got that you can look at. You can check in.
Okay.
But that's a quick on that. I really didn't do that. But yeah, and you should be planning. I've got quite a few customers that I've spoken to them, and they're planning for retirement in the next 2, 3, 4, and they want to get their estates straightened out. They want to make sure they do the transition properly to their son or daughter or employee. So it's a good time to start talking about this now than later.
Yeah, we talked about the differences between when you were a dealer to where what dealers are experiencing today. Give me your perspective of the industry today. So clearly technology is changing and the pace has quickened, I believe. Today even versus 3 years ago. So where do you see us in 5 years? It's a short window, but where do you see us in 5 years as an industry, technologically, as well as the dealers and DIY and all of the above?
I think the buyer. I think we're going where the reason why companies are buying, the bigger companies are buying books of business. They're going to use that avenue to get into the home. If you sell today, where it's going is if you're not giving them additional services than just an on and off switch for alarm system, a 1, 2, 3, 4 passcode, you've got to be in the future. You've got to be giving them other services than just a alarm that goes off because someone opened the door. You've got to be giving others. I think that down the road, 5 years from now, our industry will be giving a lot more services than we're actually doing now. Some of the dealers are doing it now, but most of them are just sitting back collecting the RMR, and they're not adding any of those new services. So it's an avenue to get in the house. So 5 years from now, companies who are buying you today are going to be bringing services into the home that you hadn't thought of. That's where it's going, I think. The other services.
One more question, because we have about 1 minute, if that.
Yep.
Talk about briefly the new players coming into the market, like Best Buy. So a large retailer who's breaking into our market with the Geek Squad, who's going to be installing and all of that. Talk about that, because it's a completely different model, and
it's a different model. Yep.
Yeah. How does
it's going to hurt? I'll tell you something. It's going to hurt. It's going to hurt the traditional alarm guy. If he doesn't keep an eye on them, it's going to take 20-30% of the market. I think it's going to. These millenniums, they are very able to. They have the capacity to install their system and set it up. And what's these Geek Squads are doing? They're not signing any long-term contracts. So it's either month to month or no contract, or self-monitored through the smartphone. So we really got to keep an eye on them. It's not going to kill our business, but we're going to lose a tremendous amount of our customers. I think we're going to lose future customers. Yeah.
So with that, do you think is it going to impact the 20% or so penetration we have today in the homes, or is it going to be taking up that 80% that's still out there?
It's going to be picking up the 80% that's out there. It's going to be picking up a lot, not all of it. It's going to pick up a percentage of that. It's nothing sure thing, but I think they're definitely going to. Hey, when you see again, your article today, you see ADT buying, getting into the business. That's telling you something, guys. They're writing down. They're a lot smarter than us, and they have a lot more money. Apollo has more money than any of the guys out there. If they're doing it, then they see something, you know. So watch what other people are doing. There's a reason why they're doing it. So yes, it's going to affect there's certain buyers that it will not. You know, certain people just want it installed, put it in, take care of it, monitor it, call me when something wrong. There'll always be those people out there, and there's a certain percentage out there that just will do it themselves and then have it monitored through this cell phone, and that's coming. It's already here.
Absolutely.
With
well,
no
Rory,
contract, no monitoring. Yeah.
Well, that's the tough part. So we're out of time.
Yeah.
We've talked
Right.
22 minutes, but I thank you for joining us, and you provided some really good information. So I thank you for that.
All right, appreciate it.
Yeah. So join us next week when I talk to Les Gold. Certainly an industry insider, and then of course I have been ending my event here, with one more plug. You have an interest in cloud-based solutions? Cloud Plus is happening November 28th and 29th in Austin, Texas. Visit ssncloudplus.com for any details. So, folks, thanks for joining us, and we will see you next Thursday at 12:30. Thank you, Rory.
Thank you. Bye-bye now. Thank you, Tim.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.